Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Because it leads right into what I'm going to be talking about your heart. And so the title is, What Goes Around Comes Around. Well, I want to start off with asking you guys a few questions. So you will just go work with me here because I want you to feel what we're going into. How many people here are parents? Do you remember the day that your children were born and you held them for the first time? Do you remember that love you felt and like the whole world melted away? Do you remember, who here is grandparents? Do you remember that first time you saw your child with their child and the love that you had and the whole world melted away? Who here has seen puppies or kittens born? Yeah? Do you remember that moment when you just saw this life come into this world, much like your grandchildren or your children? Can you feel that love right now? Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes just for a second. And I want you to fall into your heart like that moment you saw your grandchildren, your children, or even if you're an aunt or an uncle, or you witness a child being born, the love that you felt in that moment, a new life created by God, Spirit, whatever you pray to. I want you to feel that just for a moment. Now, once you feel it, I want you to take the breath of life. Take a deep breath in and hold that presence of love in. And now you share it with the world by letting it out. Bring it back in. Feel all that love in your body. Feel that love, deep breath in. Because now you're taking all the love that's being given in this temple and you're going to let it out. And you're going to feel that love going through all your pain, your anxiety, and the whole world is melting away in this moment, here in this temple. We're sharing and giving love and receiving love, and we're feeling it at the core of our being. And just hold it just for a second, and see this entire room, everybody in this temple, everybody that's a part of this temple, everybody that in this temple, the people in this temple come into contact with. I want you to see this love spreading through all of existence, all of the universe, all of St. Petersburg, and you, the souls you're going to touch with this presence. Feel that. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. All right. Who felt that? Yeah? Okay. So that leads me to my stories, because the name of my business is The Storytelling Alchemist, because I love stories. And what are those stories about? They're about the stories of transformation and how you transform yourself from the inner parts of the depths of your world. So I was gifted with a bunch of trips this year. The first one was to New York in March. And I remember this trip because I was so overjoyed. It was a work trip. I was only there for about a day and a half. But I was connecting with all my coworkers, and we were just laughing and just having an amazing time. And I just remember how much joy I felt when I left there. And then the very following week, I was in the French Quarter in New Orleans. And I'm sitting on if anybody's familiar with New Orleans, they have these balconies that look over Bourbon Street. And I'm sitting there in this nightclub called Oz, and I'm looking down over Bourbon Street. And my friend who I'm there with him for his birthday is talking to me. And I remember in that moment, I realized that the last time I was sitting in that spot on that balcony was 19 years prior, before Katrina. And I remember how heartbroken I was there that day because my partner and I, at the time, had such a bad fight that that was the night that it ended our relationship. And so, here's the cool part, though. I was sitting there, and I was like, I'm no longer hurt. I'm no longer in pain, and I'm no longer heartbroken because I had something that I didn't have then. I loved myself. So that's my next question for you. Have you ever just woke up in the morning, looked in the mirror, and you looked at yourself and you say, I love myself. And you just felt that presence of love so profoundly that it almost brought you to your knees. Has anybody ever experienced that? Okay. That's what we had here. Does everybody feel this presence of spirit in here? Yes. Okay. So that's that heart desire that the Goodfellows were singing. They were talking about this moment where this mind poison comes in, but the only way you get out of it is through your heart. So what goes around comes around is the realization that one day it'll keep on coming around, it'll keep on coming around, it'll keep on coming around, it'll keep on coming around until you get it. So I've been here and I've talked about my teacher Eileen and Reka, and they were part of this community here in St. Petersburg. And they used to tell me, Reka used to say, God's going to come to you and give you a lesson. And then if you're not getting it, he's going to be like, okay, darling, I'll come back when you're ready. I've got plenty of time. And if you knew Reka, she had a very thick Polish accent. And so she would say it, and you'd laugh. And Eileen was a little bit more direct than Reka was, with a lot of, I think the word is expletives, but it was a lot of fun. But what goes around comes around. When I walked into the temple today, I was introducing my friend here, Virginia Drake, who's in the audience, who is my mentor, and I'm very happy she's here today. But she came into my life in 2008, right at the time that Eileen had passed into the other side. And so the universe brings you exactly what you need at perfect time. You're always taken care of. Always. Even at times that you think you're not being taken care of, and the worst of times, this presence you feel here is still there. But we're either in fear or what? And when we're in love, we're in flow with the divine, with that presence. And so Virginia and I decided to go on an adventure because I love adventures. And she calls me up a couple weeks ago. She goes, I want to go to Titusville. And I only know about Titusville because of when I go out of the cruise ports. And so I was like, sure. So I've been thinking about RVing around the country and teaching about in spiritualist churches around the country. And then I was like, well, I found an Airbnb, and we're going to go stay at this RV. And I called her up and said, do you want to go and stay at this RV and go to Titusville? And the next day we'll go to see my friend in Casadega. She said, sure. We get there. It's this small little RV. Doesn't look like, it was still perfect though. And we go into Titusville, and it takes us forever to find a restaurant because you can't find parking. So we end up parking in the fire lane because everybody's like, no, don't worry, nobody's going to do anything. I'm like, I'm parking in the fire lane. I want my car to be there when I come out. Don't worry about it. City Hall just said, people got to park somewhere. And we were like, okay. So we go in, and we're both kind of giggling about everything that's going on and just processing. And I finally said, well, tomorrow, why don't we just get up early and go to breakfast and then go to Casadega? Well, it was interesting because a friend of mine had sent me a video of this place called Jack's Tavern, and it was supposed to be in Titusville, but it was actually in Rockledge, Florida, about 30 miles south. And we were sitting there, I was like, why don't we just go to Casadega in the morning? Well, this man sitting like 2 tables down looks at us and says, where are you guys from? And I said, Newport Richey, Tampa, that area. And he starts telling us about things we can see in the area. And then he tells us he's a former state representative for the state of Florida. He just termed out like a few months prior. So we start talking about that in a random conversation. But his conversation had me thinking all night. And I realized I still wanted to go to that Jack's Tavern. There was just something about it that was pulling me there. And so we thought it was because there was a ghost in the bathroom, and we just thought it was cool. We were going to go check it out. Well, we didn't see the ghost in the bathroom. It was supposed to be the women's bathroom, so I sent Virginia, and I said, go in there, because I'm not going to go in there. That would just be weird. So she goes in there, no ghost, no presence. She was like, if you're here. Well, we're there, and we're talking, And this girl keeps on walking by and looking at me. And I keep on looking at her and thinking, wow, there's something about her I recognize. She finally looks at me. Now keep in mind, I'm 2.5 hours away from Tampa, and she looks at me and says, is your name Jeremy? I was like, yeah, I feel like I know you. She goes, it's Leslie. We work together. We lived together in Brandon almost 20 years ago. So my 20 years ago has been coming back into my life because what goes around what? Comes around. So the universe was leading me to this tavern, which is in the middle of nowhere, but it's been there since like 1861. And so I sat there and I thought, what are the chances of me running across a person that I was friends with, but we weren't super close, but to her, she just lit up when she saw me. Well, so next time I go over there, we're gonna have dinner together. But my point here is the universe is guiding you and giving you messages all the time, and if you're in your heart's desire, in your heart, you're going to be in these moments where you're gonna know where you need to be, what you need to do, and what you need to say. So we go to my friends in Casadega, and has anybody here ever done table tipping before or experienced it? I never have. I've always wanted to. It was powerful. It was very powerful. But what was more powerful is as we started to put our hands on the table and everybody was asking to connect with their family members, the table kept on leaning over on my leg. It just kept on pushing over on my leg, so, which I knew was my mother. Well, when the table leans on your leg, it means that you're getting a hug from the spirit that's pushing on it or manipulating the table. But I felt the presence push against my knee as if somebody was leaning over, hugging me, and their body was touching my knee. And you felt all this love. So if you're in your heart's desire, you're what? You're in the flow and the presence of spirit. Does anybody relate to this? Maybe not to the table tipping part, but to the presence of spirit. And that's what we're all looking for, because we're looking for that presence of love and the heart's desires within our lives at all times. And what happens is we get into fear, and what happens? We miss it. We miss it. We miss the opportunity to really experience that presence of spirit and that unconditional love that we're all looking for. But we're looking for it outside of ourselves. It starts within, and when it's, as the song says, and then everything else just manifests through that. So none of it means anything unless you have that presence of that unconditional love and of the heart within inside of yourself. And then you share that with other people like we were doing earlier. And so the most powerful part of the evening last night is we got home, and my friends that I used to run a Sunday spiritual group at a coffee house in a place called Sacred Grounds in Tampa. And the lady that owned it and her partner came over last night, and there was this moment where Mandy, who's a friend of mine, opened her heart up, and she was literally had this presence of love, and you could feel the radiance of love just literally pushing off of her and flowing through the air to us. Has anybody ever experienced that before? That amount of energy of love and healing energy. Now, and she literally couldn't talk. She said, oh, my body is just vibrating. And so we had to keep her in her body. Stay in your body. But the presence between the two of them and the love that they had and the love we had for each other, that's healing. Imagine what would happen in your body, all your pain and your anxiety and all the things that are causing your body to feel all that stuff. Pain is pay attention inward now. That means at some point in your life, somebody has hurt your feelings and you have held on to it, and it's now tightened in your body, and it's blocking the flow of energy to flow through the energy meridians within your body and to heal it. Because love is flow. Love is the presence of the mother, of the divine mother, literally creating around you. The divine father sets intentions, and the divine mother molds around and creates and envelopes you in this moment. Amen. And so that's what we're all looking for. But it's when our mind starts getting caught up in all the stuff, and just before we were coming up here, my mind poison started coming up there because I knew I was going to share my heart with you, and there was this nervousness that came in, and then the Goodfellow sang that you have to talk to yourself in this song, and I said, they're right. That's what you have to do. You have to talk to yourself. And I said internally, you got this. So don't miss it, everybody. Don't miss it. Don't miss your opportunities to be in your heart. The last story I'll leave you with is my friend says to me last night, she's telling us a story about how she saw a friend of hers waiting for the bus. And she said in her mind, she thought, I need to just grab him and pull him in the car and said, I'll drive you anywhere, wherever you want to go. She felt it in that moment, but she felt, I also need to go take care of my mother and I don't want to be late. And then she realized, and then 3 weeks later, she found out that he was out somewhere and he's no longer with us. So we'll just leave it at that. So she was heartbroken that she missed this opportunity to connect with her friend. But then we said to her last night, that man gave his life so that you could see your own heart and an opportunity that you missed, but it's not about guilt. It's about now you'll never miss those opportunities again. He gave his life so you can sit in your heart and you can be in this present and you don't miss those moments. And that's what I want you all to take from this. Don't miss it, because if you miss it, you don't want regret to come in. Live your life to the fullest. And I guarantee you, you will have joy and abundance of all things that make you happy. And I'll leave you with that. Much love.